down, and here he is in studio. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. I do answer my phone most of the time.
Well, you're here in person. That's
in
even
person.
better.
Yeah.
Planting season around the corner again?
Yeah. If you're going to do those fall, and not just for small plots, but even those of us in the farming community, it's time to get that seed ordered. If you're going to put a cover crop on, August, September is a good time to fly it on. Or there's a couple guys in the Morrison area now that have really big drones, and they can actually seed with those drones. I mean, large capacity drones. And so there are ways to put that stuff on now where you don't have to run over the crop. Because in the past, what you had to do was either use a high boy type thing that was taller than the corn or the beans and dropping them, but you still ended up running over the end rows. Or some guys put it on with a tractor, but it wasn't good. But now, with those drones, you can fly them on and you have no crop damage at all. And it comes up really well. Normally, I try to look at the weather forecast, and if you can get it on a day or two before a rainy day, just let the rain take it in. With corn, it's a little bit more complicated because you got a whirl in there where the seed sometimes is caught in there. But with soybeans, piece of cake, and those leaves will drop, or with corn, they sag and dry out, and those crops come up, and you get a nice cover crop there.
So what's happening with SWCDE?
Yeah, there's a couple things. I talked to Blake yesterday at the office, and they got a fall tree sale coming up, if not already. Fish sales are coming up, and then they have the fall cover crop seed that you can get for free. And I believe this year they're offering rye and an oat turnip mix. So get a hold of him, because that stuff, it's free. And when stuff is free, it doesn't last long. So, but I think he told me they're going to have 2 semi-loads come in. And they have a skid steer there that'll load you up, but you got to get signed up in advance. So call Blake, let him know what you want. And it's a good way, if you're kind of hesitant to try it, a good way to get free seed and give it a shot and see what happens.
Of course, they're located in Morrison, right?
Right, yeah, right on 78, MIT, Morrison Institute of Technology, is just north of there. You can't miss it. USDA building.
What are their hours?
Normally Blake's there by 7:30, and I think he stays around until about 4:30.
Okay.
So yeah, plenty of time, and he's normally there.
And your next talking point, certainly, rain is back.
Yeah, finally. I wrote this a few days ago, and I think we'd gotten a little bit of rain, but it was starting to really get hard again. The ground was like concrete in my neighborhood, and every farm I was visiting was the same way. You try to put a stake into the ground, you end up needing a 20-pound sledge to do it. But, we got a really nice rain this morning. Got a nice rain over the weekend. I got a nice rain in Wrigley Field, too, on Sunday when I was up there to watch the Cubs-Cardinals. Man, that was a late night. Whew.
I bet so. You went to that ball game?
I did. We've got a mini-season ticket package. And we got 4 seats up there, and they're not the best seats, but you can see the whole field, but they're way up on top. And so we go in, and it's kind of fun. But they pounded the Cardinals. But it was originally supposed to be like a 1:20 game. ESPN picked it up, so it became a 5:20 game. And then I think there was an hour and 20-minute rain delay. So we got home about 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 2 in the morning.
No, well, a couple of weeks ago, it was 2 in the morning.
Jeez. I don't do that stuff.
I know.
So watch those ponds.
Yeah. Well, before the rain, and even now, it's a great time to do your surveys. There's some professional biologists that'll come in and actually do it for you. The guy I work with lots out of the suburbs, but there's other people around. There's a real good group out of Peoria, Illinois, too, that would come up here. Herman Brothers, and what they'll do is they use an electronic device that shocks the fish. They come floating up, and then they record the species and the condition and the size of the fish, and then make recommendations off of that. The other thing they look at too is the weed growth, and they'll make recommendations for weed treatment too. The thing I want to warn people about, whether you hire somebody to do it or you do it yourself, you got to be very careful this time of year, especially when it's warm. Don't treat the whole pond for weeds in one shot. A lot of people just say, I want to get it done. Well, when I was working at the office, I had several people that did that, and they ended up with all their fish dead. Because what happens when you kill all the weeds in a pond, they start decomposing, and that takes the oxygen out of the water, and then there's none left for the fish, and it kills them. So about a third, maybe give it 3 weeks after the first treatment, or even a month, then treat a little bit more, but leave some weeds in the pond. The little fish need a place to hide, and those weeds are the spot. So, but, look for weeds. Trying to figure out why you have a lot of weed growth. Normally it's one or two things, either farm runoff coming into the pond, phosphorus and nitrogen, or you have a goose problem. Geese love ponds, especially where it's mowed right to the water. It's just like a golf course. Then they come in, they raise their young nearby, they bring the young in, and then suddenly you got 50 geese doing their thing right there. And it can be a complete mess. And all those nutrients go right into your pond then too.
Yeah, I'm visiting with Dave Harrison of Whiteside County. Still nesting. Be careful with your field activities.
Yeah, if you're in government programs, you're really not supposed to do anything in those fields until August 1st. So you got a couple weeks. It's coming up pretty quick here. And there are still nesting activities going on. The pheasants and turkeys I'm seeing, the poults and the chicks are able to fly by now. But just be a little patient, because there's stuff to be done. A lot of guys like to mow or get rid of trees, but just be patient. There's still nesting going on out there. A lot of the cavity nesters are still nesting. I've got a pair of bluebirds right on my property line that the male's still going in and out of the nest, so I know there's chicks in there. The wood ducks, the ducks are starting to float around. The geese are probably 3/4 the size of an adult right now. But there's still nesting activity, so just be kind of careful. And I know guys are making hay, and you can't avoid it, especially when you get a rainy period like this when it's dry. You got to go. And I've heard reports of fawns getting killed, and you can't avoid it. And I'm not blaming anybody for that. That's just how it is. But if you can avoid activity, especially in the grass fields, stay out of them for a couple more weeks. Usually by August 1st, everything can avoid the tractors, and you'll be good to go.
Rivers are definitely rising.
Yeah. Now that the North Bridge is closed, everybody's going to the South Bridge, and it's fairly slow going sometimes. And I always look to the north right before you leave Illinois. There's that timber right down there. And then you get over to the other side, and there's a little bit of timber on the Iowa side too. That's all flooded right now. And the railroad bridge, it's probably within, 5 feet of the tracks right now. But yeah, if you can get onto the river and you're a brave soul, those flooded wooded areas are incredible places to fish.
Yeah, you want to be careful out on the river.
There's a lot of stuff floating out there right now.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I go over to the Iowa City Cedar Rapids area, and the Cedar River is way up there. The Wapsie coming up a little bit as well. What about over in Illinois?
Well, really, you guys have had, now, I don't know, after this week, I think the rock's probably going to be up, but you guys have gotten a lot more rain than we have. East of the river, we're missing a lot of that stuff. And, except for Joe Davis County, they've had a lot more than Whiteside and even Carroll. So the rock right now is behaving itself. But I would imagine when after this system comes through and all that water comes out of Wisconsin, it's going to be up too.
I'm not real familiar with the rivers over there. I know the Rock, certainly. Mm-hmm. The Plum River is another one. It's up near Safan, I believe, in that area.
That one doesn't get a lot of navigation, though. There might be an odd person that comes up to fish or hunt, but that's about it.
Yeah. What are some of the other rivers over there?
The Green River, which is really just a huge drainage ditch, but it's considered a river. The Pecatonica through Rockford. That one has gotten a lot of that northern rain. It kind of winds through southern Wisconsin too, and it's picked up a lot. So I think it was at flood stage last week, in fact. That's the big one. But the Rock, that's the Rock and the Mississippi are the two big ones over there.
The Illinois River is a little further south.
Yeah, that's the one that kind of cuts through the middle. I was raised on the Illinois River.
Okay.
And it's a cool river. The backwaters in particular, I used to fish in those all the time. But it's not terrible right now, but I would bet once the Fox drains into it near Ottawa, once that starts really going up and draining in, it's going to come up too.
Interesting. Volunteer opportunities.
Yeah, if you got some time on your hands and you're not too concerned about getting paid, there's a lot of places, and you might get paid too, you never know. But if you're looking just to, work in the outdoors, once a week or twice a week, something like that, the SWCD, Blake's going to be looking for some help this fall with tree and fish sales. A lot of the state parks will take volunteers. Just stop at the main offices and check with the site superintendents. A lot of times they'll have stuff for you to do too. There's a lot of organizations out there too that do outdoor work. I know in Illinois at least, there's groups that adopt the highways where they pick up, and it's not directly environmental, but they pick up garbage off the side of the roads once a month or something like that. So there's an opportunity there too.
Hunting changes for the whitetail.
Yeah, the last couple of months I've been talking about changes that were coming out of southeastern Illinois, and they got passed. The governor signed off on it. So I think you're going to see more opportunities during the season for female or antlerless harvest, more tags. And then if you have a problem during the off season, it's going to be easier to get nuisance permits, and you're probably going to be able to get more of them now too. That was the big thing. It was especially aimed at the areas where there was a lot of crop damage and woods, which, this part of Illinois would classify as that. So, stay tuned. May take 6 months or so to get the admin rules written up, but there's going to be some changes coming in, especially on the female harvest. So we'll see.
Okay, the next one now. Nest box opportunities?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to write a grant for a teacher in Sterling who teaches practical math. What he does is, this isn't a class for college-bound kids necessarily, but what they do is they teach math principles and then they apply them directly with woodworking projects. And he's done this before for other groups, and a friend of mine knew him. And he said, hey, he was working with me this past winter inspecting wood duck boxes. And I was complaining about, these boxes are falling apart and everything. And he said, well, there's this teacher in Sterling, if you can maybe get him a grant. So we got him, I think it was a $1,000 grant. And he's going to start working on those in the fall. So if they get a hold of either Blake or myself, there may be some free boxes available. But be patient. It's going to take him some time to get going this fall, and then to build them, of course, too. But both bluebirds and wood duck boxes.
Squirrel season opening August 1st?
Yeah. I love the squirrel hunt. I never really hunted too much in the early season because of the ticks and the poison ivy and that. But I got a job with a guy that's got a pecan grove, and he collects the nuts to, grow more trees, and he actually just gives the trees away. And he called me one day and he says, hey, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. It was middle of August, hot, steamy. He says, the squirrels are robbing me blind out here. And so I went out there the first year, and it was incredible. It was like a wave of squirrels from about, 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. You couldn't keep them out of there. And he said, can you kill a few of them for me? And I started shooting them. I stay within the limits and everything. And I give a lot of them away. It's unbelievable the number of people that love squirrel, and they either don't hunt or they can't hunt, and they like the squirrels. So I just give them a lot of them away. I shoot.
My wife grew up on a farm, and her brothers loved squirrel hunting.
Oh, it's a fun. It's really fun because they're so hard to hit. I use a rifle, and I bought a rifle a few years ago. It's not terribly expensive, but it's really accurate. Put a scope on it. And it's very challenging.
Watch out, squirrels. Here comes
Dave.
Here
I come again. Oh.
and finally, you have this up at the top, butterflies.
Yeah, I wanted to put that down. I hadn't seen a lot until this past week. And I was getting kind of worried. I think in the last month I saw 2 monarchs is all, and that's it. And I thought, oh boy. And I work on some farms where there's some pretty good native flower stands, and a lot of early pollinators, but there were no monarchs at all. Now this week, I'm finally starting to see monarchs, both swallowtails, there's some, the cabbage butterflies, but this is the first time I've seen them. That, in my mind, that's kind of late. I'm hoping things pick up even more, but especially the monarchs, there's just not a lot of them out there.
Hey, we'll talk to you again in August. Appreciate
right.
your time as well.
You're listening to AM 1340 KROS, Clinton, Iowa.
FM 105.9.
And KROSradio.com.
Radio Iowa News is brought to you by the I Smile Oral Health Program from Iowa HHS.